So here today we have a very interesting poem. I hope so you all have looked into your flipped class material.
Yes.
You have read those?
Yes.
Listened to those tracks?
Yes, ma'am.
And how many of you felt the poem is going to be quite exciting for you? Just put up your hands. That's good. And frankly, to tell me how many you felt you need more guidance into this. You're not clear about it with your flipped class materials. You need more interpretations on that. That's good. Alright, now we are going to have this in our coming up classes. So here we have the class 1 on Ozymandias with my learning objective to be to appreciate, analyze and understand the poem in short. Alright, for this we are moving with a starter task. So on the basis of what you have heard in your flipped class yesterday, what you have seen and heard about the poem, maybe the theme, the structure, the point. So on the basis of this, we are going to have a starter task. So you need to write, it's a team-wise task. Team 1, you're going to present, I've given you a topic before you. So you're going to present the style and tone of the poem. You're going to think and, just think about how the writer had chosen the words. How is he put together his thoughts into words. So the style and tone of it you need to discuss in your paper. And team 2, what is the topic?
Language.
The language. That's a very interesting topic again. You need to know what kind of vocabulary he has chosen. You can think about even the devices used here to create, beautify the language there. What about here? Content. That's very interesting. So with the read of the poem, you'll be able to give me a gist of the content. What is the subject, or is there a message conveyed in the poem? This team, structure. You'll be doing on structure. That's also quite interesting. And in the flipped class material, it was very clear for you. What genre of the poem was that?
It was a sonnet of 14 lines.
Very good. So I don't think you'll have a difficulty in giving me the structure of the poem. We will start the activity. It's timed for 3 minutes. You're going to start with this. You're going to present your views on all these 4 topics. You can start right now. Look to your time. Those who need a description on your topics can look up to this slide. I've just mentioned to you what does the content means, what does the language mean here, and what you need to write in style and tone and structure. You have your textbook by your side, so you can also have a read of your poem. So now it's time we stop with the starter task, and I want the team leaders to come and present your paper here. You can come up to the class, present your part, and then pin up your activity sheet onto the board. Come front, introduce yourself. So you're from team?
Team 2. Team 3.
Team 3. Yes.
I'm Anelika and I'm from Team 3 and our topic is content. Ozymandias by P.B. Shelley is a political sonnet that throws light on the power of time. The poet starts off by meeting a traveller from an antique land. The traveller finds gigantic legs of stone standing in the desert, near which lied a shattered head, half sunk in the sand. The poet uses a shattered statue to highlight the imperial nature of fame, popularity.
Yeah.
Okay. Imperial nature of fame, popularity, and power. The visage showed that the sculptor had well read the king's face in whose praise the statue was made.
So that's nice. Now, any other team, would you like to add on points to this? you'd like to add on points to the content of the poem? Because she has spoken about what is the theme of the poem. She has also said about the whole story that unfolds in the poem, like how the traveler meets the poet and how he speaks about the statue. Anything else? You want to say anything added to it? Is there an irony in this poem?
Yeah.
Yes, Shreya?
It is an irony, as everything that he was confident, arrogant and boastful about his empire, everything eventually crumbled into dust because of time. And so this is a big irony.
This is put up by the team. Now I need the next team to comment on, that is your language. The language of the poet. Yes. Come front.
Yeah. I'm from Team 2 and I would like to talk about the language used in this poem. So the poet uses his wide knowledge of vocabulary in this poem. He uses words like half-sunk and a shattered visage, which describes the current status of the statue, and it gives us a clear image of the current state of the statue. He also expresses the skills of the sculptor by saying that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive stamped on these lifeless things, and the hand that mocked and the heart that fed. So this portrays that the sculptor was very, good with his work, and he had a very high artistic intellect, and he read the expression of the statue really well, and it's still shown in the half-shattered
So
face.
when the poet is trying to describe the statue, how do you define the style of his writing here? What has he used here to
I
enhance
think
his
he has used
description?
imagery
Very good.
to enhance
Yes.
the
The team, is there anything you would like to add on to?
he has used
Is there
metaphors.
a tone that he has used throughout in the poem? Because when you look into the desert and the dilapidated statue there, okay, lying in ruins, it's a kind of extended metaphor.
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's a kind of an extended metaphor. You can find the power of nature in the face of the, what you can say, the human power, invented power.
Yeah,
So in this, how can you give her the tone of the poem?
I think he's trying to say that time conquers everything, and
Yeah.
the pride of people does not last for very long, but art lasts for long, even though all the pride of the king and the empire is shattered and crumbled to dust, but still the art of the sculptor is still talked about. And
Yeah, that's also very beautifully put up. Like how art endures. Though we say that everything is, mortal in this world, nothing could stay immortal, but art endures. That's what is one you can say embedded theme in this sonnet. That's nice. A very good presentation. You can put it up on the board. The next team, can you come up with your style and tone?
I'm from Team 1. I'm going to talk about style and tone. The style in which the poet has written the poem is in a narrative way, as he speaks to the reader, narrating what the statue has been, what's happened to it. And the poet writes in a way that emphasizes the conversation between the poet and the traveler.
Exactly.
And the poet uses a lot of alliteration to describe the nature of the surroundings, as well as to describe the facial expression of the fallen statue of Ozymandias. So the tone that the poet uses is a bewildered one, in which he's very amazed by the boastful nature of Ozymandias, though at the end it's nothing.
The next team for the structure.
I'm Martin from Team 4, and I'm going to tell you about the structure of this poem. Ozymandias is a sonnet of 14 lines. It consists of one octet and one sestet. Octet is a stanza of 8 lines, whereas sestet is a stanza of 6 lines. So that's what it's a combination of the octet in the beginning and then the sestet in the end. The rhyming scheme of the poem is AB, AB, AC, DC, ED, EF, EF.
Could you make it a little more slow so that they can just look into it and confirm whether it is so? Girls, could you do that? She's just giving you the rhyme scheme. You can also put it up on board there. It will be helpful. Just confirm that our answer is right.
Yes.
Is that fine? So go to the next part of our class. That's going to be a silent listening to the poem. We'll be playing the poem here, okay, the audio track, you'll be listening to it. And meanwhile, I need someone good at drawing to just come front and just listening to the poem, how can you sketch the statue, the condition of that statue in the desert. Alright, so who is that one? Quietly listen to the poem.
I met a traveller from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer."
Okay girls, you all can see to this, she's almost finishing her picture here of the statue and it's amazing. Anirika, could you just show us the picture? Yes, you're all waiting for it. She's also given the writings inscription on the pedestal. Something very nice, beautifully done. Of course, you heard a lot about the theme, the style, the content, a lot of material through your flipped class, and we had a discussion, a very lively discussion here just in our starter task. Now I'm moving on to the next activity, where you're going to explore something. As I told you, it's time for you to explore. So this is the picture I'm giving you. It's like a food for thought. You can think what it is. And now picture is put up here. You can very well see a person reading a newspaper. And the days passed. Time changed. We got into our computers. And that's where the place we Google for everything. Right? We lost our books and newspapers. Now, what are you looking forward later? What do you think is going to replace the master? It will be the next very interesting innovation that's going to be
Robots, artificial intelligence,
robots.
virtual reality.
Oh wow, it's going to be coming up with virtual reality. This team.
Mom
Yeah.
encrypted chips.
Chips. Yeah.
Mom, self-driving cars and vehicles.
Oh, that sounds great. So you're looking forward to such a movie-like world, maybe a fiction movie-like world where you find such interesting things. Okay, next team. Anything you're looking forward to?
Teleporter maybe?
I can understand. You are into so many movies there. You're trying to knit together all those ideas. And what about this team?
Like much more advanced technology, like I don't know, cars like without running on nowadays without running on fuel.
In this context, can you think about something? Now we are moving on to the next picture. That's also showing now and then. But I've chosen our very famous cartoon character, Dora. I don't think there'll be one, that two amidst girls that you have not loved your Dora, isn't it? So you can't just have a meal without watching Dora then. So here Dora, then, and now. Found a beautiful picture of her now. Now you will comment me like, how will Dora appear at the age of 70? What will be a kind of, yes.
Anything could happen at the age of 70. She could be even more, like her appearance might be even more older. She might have more wrinkles on her face, and she might gain a lot of weight, or she might lose a
You
lot.
think about senile age, where they become too old. Yeah.
Like she can.
Do you remember your poem and Grade 9? Yes, the 7 ages. You can remember the stage, the last stage. Okay.
Or she could just die.
As simple as that. That's also a possibility. She may not live till that age. That's nice. And in any that's a very positive aspect of that. Okay, you feel like she will look much more younger than she appears now at her 40s.
With advanced technology.
That's great. Again, we are looking forward for a positive future. That she's going to look much, much younger. Will she turn to Dora again?
She just might.
So here, this is where I want to ask you a few questions. So when you were very much certain about the growth of technology, why do you think there was an uncertainty when I asked you about the case of Dora, for example? Why there is an uncertainty in predicting the status of human beings?
When it comes to technology, I mean, it can always be developed further, but when it comes to humans, I mean, time and death is inevitable, and it can come to any person. It's not necessary that you need to be old to die. I mean, death is inevitable to every human being, and it can come at any age possible. So it's very uncertain to talk
As
about
Caesar
humans.
quoted. What did he quote in Julius Caesar? Death is a necessity. Right? It is inevitable. It might come when it may. So we don't know. We can't just predict on that. Beautifully said. Sit down. Very good. So here, as she said, humans, we are mortals. We just can't have a certainty here when we predict about humans. But do you agree if I say that we can say that this artificial structures built by humans, or the technology, as you say, built by humans, would stay in this world forever? Are they immortal or mortal? What is your say on this? They are immortal.
They will all end.
They are mortal because nothing can stop time. Time does not wait for anything. By the passage of time, everything is going to get destroyed, or new things, new technologies are going to be advancing. So that's not going to stay. Either we progressing
Exactly,
or something's going to
as she says, time can conquer anything. And nature, the power of nature is far, far powerful than human power. So maybe if there is a kind of natural disaster, it's just going to be wiped off, whatever we are built in here. So there comes the question, then why do you think such statues are made by humans? You can see all those, very famous monuments in different corners of the world put up here. So you can just tell me, why are these made for? Yes.
It is, people believe that by erecting such statues, they would be, for generations, they would be remembered. It is a misunderstanding though, because with time, eventually all of this will get destroyed, and all their achievements or anything that they have ever made would also be destroyed with time. So, that is it.
So the reason for their building is?
So that they'll be remembered forever.
Forever, exactly. Any other reasons?
Ma'am, I feel like it is a human emotion, and every human feels that they must be remembered even after their death. They feel like they can still preserve
Leaving a mark in this
leaving
world.
a mark on the
Yes,
world. Yes.
exactly.
So they believe that if statues are made, it's like the whole world knows that they have still prevailed even though they have mortally died. But I feel like everyone feels the need to be remembered after their death, so that's why they got their statues made.
Very well said. Now, I think we have reached to that part where we can explore the theme of the sonnet. Can anyone refer this context to our sonnet, Ozymandias? What did the king do? Why did he build the statue? And did he actually was able to fulfill his aim of building it? Somebody? Yes.
King Ozymandias, he believed he was the most powerful king, and he wanted himself to be remembered for generations, and he wanted the others in the future. He wanted them to look at the statues and remember that this king was a very powerful king. He was also very arrogant and self-obsessed, so he got a statue erected. So all of
And any other evidence from the statue that you get from of his
on the
arrogance?
pedestal,
Yes.
there was an inscription which said, I am Ozymandias, king of kings.
Exactly.
Look upon my works, ye mighty and despair.
But everything ended.
And it all turned to dust.
Yes, everything turned to dust at last, crumbled to dust. That's what is the theme of the sonnet, the power of time. Okay, the power of time on nature when you just look to in the face of human invented power. It can never stay power, time. That's what is described in the poem called the sonnet Ozymandias. So with this, we are moving on to a small task as a plenary for your class. You just can look into it. You're going to sweep in through your lines in the sonnet and just look to the theme given here and give me, quote the lines or can also describe from the poem. If you're just not able to quote exactly the lines, you can also just describe the situations from the poem. That is actually going with these themes that I've given you. First one is, even the mightiest will fall. Can quickly each team give me the situation or lines quoted from the poem. It says, even the mightiest will fall. Team 1. Anything from your side? Even the mightiest will fall. Yeah, quickly.
Here it says that nothing beside remains.
Yeah, nothing beside remains now. But I think you also need to add those
Yes.
words of inscribed there on the pedestal that shows the glory and mighty, the power of the king. And then there is a downfall. So you need to quote the whole sestet. It explains you what the theme says is even the mightiest will fall. Very good. The next team, can you tell me, you can't beat time? Any explanation? You can just explain the situation. If you are not able to get the exact lines to be quoted, you can just explain. You can't beat time. Yes? From which? Yes?
The poem itself shows that we can't beat time. The entire theme of the poem highlights upon the power of time and how the destruction caused by time is inevitable. So it's pretty obvious you can't beat time.
Okay, that's nice, very good. Pride comes before a fall. Pride comes before a fall. There's a very interesting one.
I think it has sunk a shattered visage lies whose frown and wrinkled lip of sneer of cold command.
Okay, the facial expressions of the statue.
It shows that the king was very arrogant. The
Very
facial
good.
expression shows that he was very arrogant
Exactly.
and he was very, he believed that he's the most glorious king of them all.
Very
But
good.
in the end, his statue was shattered and crumbled
And the
to
beautiful
dust.
line saying, which yet survive on these lifeless things. Okay, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. So not the humans are surviving now, but only the sculptor, the statue's artwork. And as he says, pride comes before a fall. He said a lot about it, but nothing survives now. He is not alive. That way you can interpret it. That's nice. The last one, the power of art and words.
The expression on his face
Very good, that's the power of art. Then,
and
the power of words.
the inscription.
Yeah, the inscription on the pedestal. Very good. That was a great class that I had today with very interesting responses from you all. Alright, this is the assignment for the day. You can just note it down in your notebook. The question is, you need the poem portrays the short-living political power as against the force of time and nature. You need to discuss it. Okay, you can attempt any one of this question. It's for tomorrow. The second question you can keep it for your weekend, but for tomorrow I should find that